Good evening. This is Luke Grand speaking. Thank you for joining us tonight for our Farminar. This is March 22nd, and we are pleased to visit about profitable grass-based livestock. And we are in the middle of our Spring Farminar series, supported by Farm Aid and the Beginning Farmer Rancher Development Program. Hi there, Torray and Erin. Glad you guys are with us tonight. I just wanted to take a few minutes here to be very appreciative of
Hi,
our
Luke.
financial
Glad
sponsors
to
that
be
make it
here.
possible to share this with everybody and for us to get together. Oh, sorry, Tori and Aaron. I'm hearing my voice through your speakers. I wondered if you could turn off your mic.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. So we are Practical Farmers of Iowa. I'm a staff member, the Next Generation Coordinator, and I am also known as the Farminar Wizard. Yeah, Janice, from Central Iowa. If you're in Central Iowa, we've got tornadoes right now, so I'm hoping everybody's safe and watching these from a secure location like a bathroom or a basement. Anywho, just really fortunate to have everybody with us tonight to talk about this very valuable topic. If you're not a member of Practical Farmers of Iowa, this is the time to join. We are growing at about 14% each of the last 3 years, and it's a wonderful group to be in network with. And also, it's a great organization to leave an annual donation, of course, as it's a 501c3 nonprofit, and you can write that off on your taxes if that's your situation. And additionally, we are definitely proud to have our archive library. So if you missed any previous Farminars, that library has over 30 Farminars, 90-minute sessions with farmers as the experts to share their knowledge on a variety of topics. And that's available 24 hours a day. practicalfarmers.org/Farminar. I'm really excited to have a grazing topic tonight and see all these great grazers adding their comments on the chat box. We do a lot of different things at Practical Farmers of Iowa. Our members are very diverse and they require very different services and programming, and we're very pleased to deliver that. Some of the things we do include research. We do on-farm research and demonstration with farmers asking the questions and delivering on the research testing, and so we help coordinate that. We also line up some money to help fund that research. And we also plan 20 to 30 field days each year, which are on-farm events, 3 to 5 hours long, usually involving a meal of some type. Great way to network and learn on-farm from folks to see what's going on with pasture management or any sort of different topics. We also, as I said, write grants that helps fund our the PhD of Farminars. Thanks, Melville. We also write grants and we fundraise to help pay for our salaries as well as paying farmers for their knowledge, for sharing. All of the farmers that deliver these Farminars are paid for their knowledge, for the time it takes to put together the PowerPoints as well as to deliver this session with you all. We also have a great opportunity coming up March 25th, a branding workshop where we put on workshops periodically throughout the year to really dive into deeper details that we can't do as well on a 90-minute session. And that branding workshop is a great opportunity if you're looking into direct marketing, a great way to learn about how to sell your farm and yourself. So we also offer youth mini grants. If you've got kids 18 and under, we have an opportunity to apply for $50 to $250 mini grants to help those youth fund on-farm research and demonstration projects that they are interested in. These don't have to be on farm. They can also be, if you're in a city or something, you can do a gardening project or a food project. That's a great opportunity. And if you're interested, just email luke@practicalfarmers.org. So without any further introduction, I'd like to just welcome Cody and Torray and Erin Wilson, Cody Holmes and Torray and Erin Wilson. And tonight we're going to begin with Torray and Erin as they share a little bit about themselves, and then we'll go to Cody and then get right to the questions. Your questions are also welcome. We prefer, if possible, to save them to the end, unless they're pertinent to what's going on immediately in that topic. And we're really pleased to, like I said, welcome these great grazers to have a little conversation about profitability with grass-based livestock. So Torray and Erin, if you switch on your mic now, we'd love to have you begin, and then we'll get to Cody.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Luke. That was pretty nice compliment. Great grazers, huh? So, good deal. Anyways, so I'm Torray Wilson, and my wife Erin is sitting next to me, and our daughter Audrey's with just the newest addition in January, and she's with Grandma tonight. So, Grandma Wilson, I should say. So, all right, let's get going here. So, whenever I see presentations, I always like to know where people live. So, when we were getting ready for this, I looked up Cody and found out where he lived down in Missouri there. So, at the bottom of your screen, you can see Cody's down here. Oh, here we go. Dear. Okay. Well, forget the pointer. I guess it's not going to work. Anyways, and then we're up in northwest Iowa. So this is our family that's involved in the operation out here. And Erin and I are there on the left. And then my parents, Lorna and Dan, are in the middle. And then we're all pretty well involved in everything. Erin and I are third generation that come onto the third generation. And 500 acres right now, and we grow a variety of crops as well as pasture. And so there's corn, soybeans, triticale, hay, pasture, forage cocktails was one we tried and really liked, and then livestock, hogs, cattle, sheep, and chickens. Erin and I are basically involved in the cattle and sheep, more or less.
We wanted to give you a brief overview to kind of give some background, and we decided I should do it since I wasn't involved at the beginning, and maybe I won't give as many details. Torray's parents, Dan and Lorna, first heard Allen Nation speak about rotational grazing, and so back in '95 they decided to seed down crop ground to pasture, and then in '96 they started rotational grazing their flock, and we've heard some story, or I've heard some stories of T-posts and scrambled up electric fence wire, so we've come a long ways from there. That's the start. Torray went to college, and then in 2005 he graduated with a degree in ag, and that's when he started transitioning the crop ground to organic for health reasons and for personal beliefs. And in 2006, the family took the first course in holistic management, and we're going to talk a little bit more about how we've been using holistic management to help us out a lot in our day-to-day decisions and long-term planning and profitability. In '07, a bigger chunk of ground was seeded down to pasture, and the sheep numbers were increased. The next year, the first organic crops were harvested after a 3-year transition, and we started a new venture, which was custom grazing beef. And Torray and I, before we were married, began the Holistic Management Certified Educator program, which we are almost done with. Excited to be almost done with that, finish up some paperwork. We were married in '09 and started doing ultra-high density grazing. So we're mobbing up our sheep and our beef cattle in smaller areas and moving them more quickly. In 2010, something really exciting that happened was that we put our 3 herds together in one, instead of moving 3 mineral feeders and 3 waters and 3 sets of herds and making sure 3 sets of animals were staying in. We just had one, so we saw improvement in our management when they were all together, and the dynamics changed too. It's very interesting. And then this year, our organic land transition is complete. We wanted to share a few of our goals. This is what we're working towards, and it's actually part of our holistic goal, which is what we created as part of holistic management. So I'm just going to read a few of our statements. We desire work that is satisfying, meaningful, flexible, and diverse. We desire time to think, plan, reflect, rejuvenate, learn, grow, tinker, and for pleasure. We desire profit to meet our obligations, which includes paying our bills, paying off our debt, and our living expenses, but also to create flexibility. And the sorts of things we'd want to do with that would be travel, learn, serve, and give to others, and for recreation. And also, we'd like to see our ecosystem processing functioning at overflowing capacity. So on our farm, we'd love to see the biodiversity just blossoming, a rebound of prairie plants and animals and trees coming back, clean water that we're capturing on our farm. And so this gives us something to shoot for, and so maybe it'll help you understand what we're doing on our farm. So I've mentioned holistic management. This is just the bullseye target. So the holistic goal is the middle, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but we are managing the ecosystem processes. We categorize everything that we can use on the land in one of the categories of tools. So for example, fencing is technology, resting is getting the animals off the land. We don't use a lot of fire, but we do a lot of grazing and a lot of animal impact. Those tools need human creativity and money and labor to be used on the farm. What we found to be very helpful, and we don't probably use it enough, is the testing guidelines. And so we have 7 questions that we can just tick off on our fingers every time we have a decision, whether it's buying a new cultivator or deciding which enterprises to do this next year. So it helps us look at short and long term. Where's the money going to come from? Is it going to cause social problems? Is it leading us towards our goal? Is it a good return for our time and our money? And then the outside loop is just monitoring our decisions. So we make a plan, and as you all know, hardly ever do our plans go accordingly. So we monitor, and if we have to replan or adjust to get back on plan, that's what we do. So that's a quick overview of this decision-making framework that we're using on our farm. And Alan Savory wrote the book Holistic Management, and this is a quote from him: "If you have not accomplished your goals, adjust. Don't keep doing the same thing over and over." You've probably heard different versions of this. And we're finding that we haven't accomplished our goals yet, and it's hard to adjust, but we're working at it, and it's rewarding.
All right. So as we're learning to use holistic management, one of the things that we're implementing is every year we go through each of our enterprises and we take out any fixed expenses and just look at the variable expenses and do what is called a gross profit analysis. So this table, let me see if I can get my pointer to work here. So this table here, there we go, just explains, has our listed enterprises that we have on the farm, and then it has the gross income that each one's producing, and then the gross expenses would be the variable costs associated with them, and then the profit after that. So I put down here gross profit analysis excludes fixed costs. So keep that in mind when you see these figures for acre, dollars per acre or whatever our marginal reaction are. We still have to pay all our fixed costs after that's been figured. Now, you may not realize, but this table took us a long time, about 3 or 4 days with the whole family sitting down and working and crunching numbers, and it was kind of rough, but it's proving to be really helpful. The part that's helpful is this marginal reaction. When we look at our enterprises, we really want to be doing the best thing we can with our time, with the dollars that we have, and with the resources that we have. So this marginal reaction is, the first column here is, let's look at, if you come down to the beef enterprise here, we'll follow that across. So we have a gross income of $13,000. Now this is our custom grazing. So our expenses are really low, about $3,000, and then a gross profit about $10,000. So the marginal reaction for the dollars we spend on this enterprise is very good. However, the return per acre, which is the next column, tells us that it's not the greatest enterprise on a per acre basis. And then also on maybe we're spending too much time with them or something, because our return per hour is not real great. Same thing happens with the laying hens. But then the reason, it became apparent to us why so much corn and soybeans were grown in our area. If we look at the marginal reactions that we have up here, it explains why organic row crops is popular. And so, and the hogs is kind of skewed because of the winter production that we do on the farm, and so the production per acre is kind of skewed. But anyways, this is a table that really helped us identify where the profit is coming from and what enterprises need to be adjusted, and what area of the enterprise. The beef enterprise, we're really not spending that much money on it, but maybe we need to look at our production per acre and analyze that a little more and see what our efficiencies are with our labor. So, all right. So basically, we have we asked ourselves, what's our limiting factor? Are we short on time or are we short on money? Sometimes you're short on both, but usually in each enterprise, it's one or the other, time or money. So this is just what we've been using this year to plan forward. And it helped us make a decision when we were planning for this next year. We were looking at our profitability on the pasture, and we realized, we really need to generate a little more cash flow. I got another slide that shows another form of profitability, but so we needed a little more cash, so we decided to put some corn in on some of the acres that we have. So.
And it was a field that needed to be reseeded, and so it wasn't like we were plowing up pasture, but it was something that we could do on that piece of land to help us make our...
Yeah, it was also already an annual, so, and it's also where we outwintered, so it all helped. I get it. Is our fan coming through on the microphone, Luke? All right, we'll keep going here. All right, so I mentioned that we had another form of profitability, and that was in biological capital. With holistic management, we can talk about profitability in 3 different ways. It can be a mineral resource, being rock or gravel or oil that's on your land, or it can be biological capital, which is green plants or whatever you're growing, and then paper dollars. And the most volatile thing is paper dollars. So that's one of the reasons why I really like pasture-based systems, is that we're storing our wealth not in something that's very variable like paper dollars, but in something that's very stable like biological capital. So this was some information I gathered from the In Practice, which is a publication put out by Holistic Management International, and it was done in New Zealand, so I had to go through and convert the numbers to English terms. So, but you can see, with just the 3 tons per acre of dry matter a year, you're putting away about $1,200 an acre in biological capital in the the stuff that's growing out there. All right, so one of the principles that we use on our farm is to stack enterprises. I read Joel Salatin's Pasture Poultry Profits when it was still this little stapled together file folder thing, and so we've been following Joel Salatin a lot, and so the whole idea of stacking enterprises made sense to us. And so we started with sheep, and then when we added the beef, and then we had chickens, and then we've always kind of implemented crop residues in the livestock plans, but then when we added beef, we really saw the benefit to having multiple ruminant animals on grazing together. The utilization of the plants was just amazing, and now we're really excited about cover crops in our crop fields so that we can keep the soil covered longer and for more of the year, and utilize them also as grazing. And then cocktail crops for building fertility in the cropping rotation as well. So all these can be intertwined and interconnected, and holistic management has given us the tools to start implementing this in an orderly fashion. So.
And this is also a reason why we might choose to do an enterprise that isn't the top profitable enterprise, as you saw back on our chart.
Yep. So here's just a picture of our cattle and the sheep grazing together, and then our eggmobile, and just pull that behind the mob with four-wheeler. So I experimented with cocktail mixes. There's lots of people up in North Dakota that are doing this, and we thought we'd give it a try down here in Iowa. So these are all the different variety of seeds that we put it through the grain drill, mixed it all up and threw it all in and planted it, and then about 2 weeks we had the ground completely covered. It was pretty amazing to see how rapidly the ground was covered, and it was really cool. So we're kind of using this also in a way to convert crop ground to pasture. And if you look at the normal succession, it goes to annuals and then it goes to perennials. So we thought this would be a good way to transition some of the ground to pasture. All right. There was a bit of a learning curve with this. We waited until it was fully mature to make sure that we could grow as much material as we could. And the cattle didn't want to wait for the sheep to get out of the way, and so we did get some sheep stepped on, but all in all, a few days, or I think maybe it was a week, the sheep learned that they had to wait for the cattle to go in first, and we didn't have any more issues. So there you see the cattle going in, and that's what's left after they went through and munched. So there's a lot of material left over for the soil microbes and the earthworms, and it was looked really good. So let's see, where am I at? So Erin talked about the ecosystem and that we have tools to manage it. And for profitability, we look at those tools a lot. And so grazing, in this picture, these are Canadian thistles here. And instead of spraying them, we can manage them with grazing. And the best time to hit them is at blooming, knowing when. Before I knew that, I was hitting them at, when they were young, thinking I was setting them back. But after talking to some more experienced grazers, they said, well, you'll set them back a lot further. So, yeah, with grazing, we want to get the animals to the right place at the right time for the right reason and with the right behavior. So in this instance, we grouped them pretty tight, and to get them to graze this. Once they learned how to eat them, though, we didn't need to group them so tight. All right. Another tool is animal impact, and this is anything besides grazing. You know, urinating, dunging, and with the hog operation, hogs are amazing animal disturbers. So we used them this pasture to take out some part of pasture that was pretty weeds and thistles that we were just curious to see if we could take them out. So. And the unintended consequences of animal impact is when we started bunching our herd all in one, we got these huge, massive flocks of birds coming in, and they really basically decimated any fly issues we had. And we had a separate herd earlier, and they were just a small herd, and they were just getting eaten alive by flies, and we moved them into the big herd and took care of the issues. So worked well. Technology, just, you know, polywire fencing. There's a lot of good technology for making pastures more profitable, and we're kind of a big fan of all the portable stuff. We use quite a bit of it since we're on crop ground for a good part of the year. So rest, this is just an example of an experiment we did where we just we didn't seed anything. If you look, here's a line and here's a line. This triangle-shaped piece we just left, we didn't seed anything, and then this over here on the edges was the cocktail mix, and the ground was completely covered, and just about as fast as the stuff we seeded, and so it was kind of like, well, why did we seed it? But anyways, rest can do some pretty cool things.
This had been crop ground the year before.
Yeah, right. And then, let's see. And then living organisms, the rumen microbes from our sheep and the cattle, and just adding those to the soil is going to change our land. And then we did an interesting experiment to just demonstrate the difference between soils that have microbes and soils that don't. We had a class come out, and I took a spade full of dirt from our pasture and from a neighbor's corn soybean field, and then I think our crop rotation field, organic crop rotation, and just had them smell it and feel it and see the texture and the difference, and it was pretty amazing. This is just a quote that hit me when I was reading Alan Savory's book. I think it was in his book, but he said, organic farming, sustainable farming, and chemical farming are all failing. And that first comment really hit me. And then he says, they are failing because of our decision process. My hope is for those who use a holistic management decision process. And from our experience has been really positive with holistic management. So we're pretty excited about it, and I think Alan hit on something here. So another quote that I like to say and keep reminding myself when I have a bad day is, manage for what you want, not for what you don't want. So that's all, Luke. That's all we have.
Great, thank you so much. Were there any questions that people had about clarifying questions about from Erin and Torray before we move on to Cody Holmes? All right, Cody, if you want to begin, here's your presentation, and let me know if you need any assistance. Hello, Cody. I'm not quite hearing you yet. I'm wondering...
And I'm going to talk a little bit about what we do on our ranch. We've got 1,000 acres of probably some of the rockiest ground in the country. Very thin soils, unlike what Torray and Erin have got up north. They've actually got a little bit of soil. We've got a lot of rocks and a little bit of poor quality soil sticking to our rocks. What we're seeing on the screen now is a copy of a book that I wrote last year, Ranching Full Time on 3 Hours a Day, and it's an historical account of what we did on our ranch to try to bring those rocks and soils up to production and try to make some improvements on a pretty rough piece of ground down in South Missouri. We're a family operation, started in the early 1970s. This is an older picture of us, and it's my wife, myself, and the last child I have at home, which is now 15. We also have a diversified operation. Even though the Rockin' H Ranch is actually almost 40 years old now, about 10 years ago we started direct marketing some of our products, and we created a food label by the name of Real Farm Foods, and I'll get into a little bit more of that as I go through. We sell through Real Farm Foods our beef, pork, lamb, chicken, and produce, and I'll talk as we go. The Rockin' H Ranch is originally a cow-calf operation. For over 25 years we did nothing but raise cow-calf. And as time went by, about 10 years ago, we started looking a little bit more through the eyes of a holistic system management type point of view, and we started adding other species. We generally run right now between 400 and 450 mama cows, between 200 and 300 yearlings at a time. We have a herd of Katahdin hair sheep, probably closer to 400 head now. We run between 60 and 70 hogs. We do have several groups of laying hens that follow the mob of livestock that do move across the ranch. We've got, in season, we raise broilers and turkeys, and which we sell through the Real Farm Foods label. And we also have a small Jersey dairy on the farm now as well. This property that I'm talking about, 1,000 acres, is depicted with this plat map. We divided the ranch up years ago into 5 grazing cells. That's the green, red, pink, blue, and black. Within each grazing cell there are 20 to 40 paddocks, making a total of over 150 paddocks on the ranch, which right now we're moving through about 2 to 4 paddocks per day right now, as we're trying to accomplish different tasks with our forages on the property, and depending on the season we will alter that speed that we're moving through these paddocks. And in general terms, we will get to the point later in the season where we're moving through 1 paddock per day. So with 150 paddocks, it would take approximately 151 days to cover the ranch, or approximately 5 months to go over the entire ranch. This is a photograph of what we really prefer our forages to look like. For the unseasoned person, it might look like this is nothing but a pile of weeds. We actually prefer weeds. We have found through nutritional testing that plants like lamb's quarter, thorny pigweed, ragweed, and many other of those what most people call weeds, we prefer calling forbs, are actually quite nutritious. And we now prefer our paddocks to be made up of maybe 40 or 50% of those type of forbs. Yes, our pigs do eat grass. They can consume a considerable quantity of forages in a year's time. On the ranch, we have no fertilizer bill. We purchase no fertility. We raise it all. We fed no hay this winter except the 9 days that we had ice. So we are hay, more or less free of hay feeding. We have no one works off the ranch at a job. The ranch supports the people that live on the ranch. All of our animals eat and make grass, all of them, even the chickens. And the ranch does support 2 families. We believe the number one key to long-term success in a grazing operation like we use here on the ranch is catching carbon and building organic matter, and this is the primary reason why we have no fertilizer cost. We stomp in a tremendous amount of forage over the season and work at building organic matter rather than nutrients. We have found that when we can improve our organic matter like we've done the last 10 years, our soil tests come back with 6 and 7% organic matter, which at one time was below 2%. When we get the organic matter up at these levels that we're at now, our nutrient content on our soil samples, that meaning our elements, are extremely well balanced as well. And we are very, very adamant, and part of our holistic goals are to have a ranch that supports the family in a manner that does not require us to work 12 and 14-hour days. We believe that farming should remain relaxing and comfortable to the people that the ranch supports. And I'm telling you, there is grass under the snow. The pig there in a photograph obviously has been eating through the snow, just like our cattle do and like our sheep do. They know that there's forage underneath that snow, and they know that they do not have to sit there and wait for a tractor to bring them hay in a bale ring. They are grazers. They've got 4 legs. They know how to find the forage and the water, and that's really a big part of what we're after on our ranch. The multi-species brings an added element into the ranch, where at one point in time, for many years, we were grazing only one species, meaning the bovine. We added other species like this hair sheep to utilize the forages that the cattle were not utilizing, and it cost us nothing in forage. So what I'm getting at is we are able to run 3, 4, 5, 6 other species of animals on the same land with practically no additional cost, and we obviously increase our income and utilization of what the ranch produces. Multi-species grazing is a very big part of what we're doing. All of our animals run together in a big mob. Here's a photograph of some of the laying hens in the foreground and the hair sheep lounging down by the creek in the back. Another photo of multi-species grazing, a little shot of some of the little feeder pigs in with the cows in this picture. We have over 150 paddocks, primarily single and double wire, high tensile fence. This is what we call an Argentine gate. It's nothing more than a 10-foot section piece of 4-inch plastic PVC pipe with a notch in the top of it. We do have some gates on all of our fencing, but we have a lot of places where we need to move cattle where there is no gate. We simply take this piece of PVC pipe, which we call an Argentine gate. We hook it onto the wire. The wire is hot. We raise it 10 foot in the air. The cattle and the rest of the animals walk underneath the wire. 10 minutes later, the wire is lowered back down, and we go on to the next paddock for grazing. This is something I come up with quite a few years ago in management, and I tell my consultant clients that if we want to be a grazer, you have to work at being a grazer. Therefore, the 3 R's. Always remember these 3 R's on your daily management of your ranch. We want to try to never buy things that can rust, rot, or can't reproduce. If you're looking to purchase something that will fit into one of these categories, I'm always recommending to back up, take a look at it a little closer. If it will rust or if it will rot, and if it cannot reproduce, you might want to question whether it's really needed on the ranch or not. These are just some photographs of the mob, and we use the word efficiency here because we think this is the most efficient way to feed livestock. They can feed themselves. All they need to do is be moved into a paddock where they can have access to quality forage and water. There's very little else required. Again, another shot of what we consider an efficient stand of forage. A lot of people would probably think that that stand of forage is too weedy. There's absolutely nothing in that stand of forage that is not extremely beneficial to us and our ranch. And there's probably, when we measure forage, and that just looking at it from the picture, there's probably 6,000 to 8,000 pounds of dry matter to the acre. Every last ounce of it usable forage. Again, my book, Ranching Full Time on 3 Hours a Day, explains our system. I'm happy to send a book to you, or you can order it through Acres USA. My contact information is on the screen now. Feel free to call me, email me with any questions that you might have.
Great. Cody, if you could unplug your headphone jack, and you can try to listen in through your speakers. Hey everybody, we're back on, and I've got Cody Holmes on my speakerphone. I think there's an issue, unresolved issue we tried to figure out, but we're going to go with it this way. Can you hear Cody if he speaks right now? Go ahead, Cody.
I'm on here and I can hear fine.
Great. Torray, can you hear us through the speakerphone? Torray or Erin, can you hear me now?
I think our mic got muted, so we're good now.
Okay, cool. So can you hear Cody when he speaks right now?
Yep, we can hear him.
Great. Okay, so let's go ahead and start questions. Cody, if you want to have your daughter sign you back in, you can still see the screen, right? Okay, and if you can hear this question from Torray and Erin, we can begin with questions.
All right, Cody, the first question we had is, if you had to do it over again, how would you get started in grazing?
Well, I'm assuming when you ask you have to start over again, nothing. So that's a pretty big question. Probably from a practical standpoint, for most people, probably the most likely way to start grazing would be from a lease farm rather than ownership, and that would be simply because of the tremendous investment in asset money. So I guess my quick and dirty answer would be to lease a farm and start purchasing livestock and reach a point where, provided the funding was available, to invest in multiple species grazing as quickly as possible. Did you have another question?
Yeah, we'll keep going here. Thanks, Cody. What are the main opportunities that pasture-based systems offer?
Just repeat that again. It's breaking up.
Oh, just what are the main opportunities?
The connection's not very good, but all I heard was what are the main opportunities. I'm gonna speak. I may not have got the question just right, but I'm gonna go ahead and talk. I think one of the biggest opportunities we've got now is to look at the true opportunities and possibilities of direct marketing. It moves us into a different arena that we didn't really talk about 10 or 15 years ago. Are you still on there, Torray?
Yeah, I'm still on here. I just try to keep muting my mic because I think I might be sending feedback back through my mic. So whenever you talk, I try to mute. So thanks. Yeah, that was good. What are your unfair advantages there in Missouri?
My unfair advantages probably would be we have some of the least expensive land in the country, and that really probably really helps us in the long run. We also have 42 inches of annual rainfall. We also have more cows in the United States in Missouri than any other state in the nation besides Texas. So therefore, we obviously must have the ability to carry a lot of cattle per acre, and we certainly do. Even though we've got extremely thin soils here in Missouri, these advantages with rainfall, climate, gives us the ability to grow just an enormous amount of forages, and we're highly mineralized too, even though it may not appear that way in the beginning.
Yeah, I think that's been our experience, that at the beginning the production has been a bit disappointing, and even with multi-species grazing. But yeah. So what are your land costs per standard animal or 1,000-pound animal? With multi-species grazing, it seems like that's the easiest way to talk about it. But do you own all your land, or how does that work?
Okay, we can talk about land cost, and when we're talking about land costs and we're relating it to the animal unit, there's going to be a tremendous disparity from one operation to the next. And I think if you look at my ranch 30 years ago, when we're talking about carrying capacity, it's really better to talk about carrying capacity than it is cost per acre, I think. For instance, the way that we used to operate the ranch on cow-calf alone with more traditional feeding systems, we would probably be close to somewhere between 5 and 8 acres per cow-calf unit. That's a much more traditional system than what we're doing on holistic systems. Now where we're not purchasing any outside inputs, some people would think that, well, your production is going to go down. When we quit using chemical fertilizer and started using biological fertility and use of the holistic system with the animals and high animal impact, our carrying capacity actually went way, way high. So now we're the same land that was producing, that was requiring 8 acres per cow-calf, now is very easy to carry a cow-calf for every 1.5 to 2 acres. And then in addition to that, because we are multi-species grazing now, which we weren't earlier, we're able to add these other species of animals on that 1.5 acres without taking away from. So the land cost is extremely variable and a very poor return on investment under the traditional system. Under a multi-species holistic plant grazing program, where we're creating our own fertility, we're seeing 3, 4, and 5-fold carrying capacity. Even just doubling your carrying capacity is like reducing your unit per acre cost by 50%. and we're doing more than that.
So how many years would you say it took you to get to that doubled land carrying capacity?
That's a real hard question to answer, and it's a very detailed question that we don't have enough time to really cover like I would like to cover, so I'm going to have to really abbreviate it. Under this grazing systems that we're talking about, as far as my knowledge goes, and the people that I've worked with for a lot of years, and some of the people have been grazing under this system for almost 30 years, we're not seeing any climax. What I'm getting at is we make improvements each and every year. Our production next year will almost always be at a higher level than our production was the year before. And we're not seeing any point in time where that stops, which is truly not typical of agricultural production as we know it. So if you ask me how long did it take to get, well, we've been ranching for almost 40 years, so it took us 4 years to get where we're at today. But it's only taken the last 10 years to go from land that was taking 7 and 8 acres per running cow, where now we've got that same ground that only takes 1.5 acres to run a cow. And now it's also running a sheep and many other species as well.
Thanks. I think that really helps answer a question. All right. Do you want to click to the next slide?
Okay, Cody, I'm going to ask a few. So the title of your book is Ranching in 3 Hours, and so we have not read it yet, but we were wondering, what does a typical day look like for you and your family?
Typical day, okay, and I do describe that in my book actually, and I want to point something out. Our operation now is actually 2 separate, complete, different businesses, but they are both dependent upon each other. And I'm going to try to shorten this. The book title is Ranching Full-Time, Ranching on 3 Hours a Day, and that is very easily done. With over 1,000 head of livestock on our ranch, doing the daily chores does not take 3 hours a day. It's much, much less than that. And that is one business. Actually operating the ranch and all the multiple species that we have, keeping the fence up, and managing the livestock, that is the ranch part, which I refer to in detail in my book. The other side of our business, or the other business, is Real Farm Foods, which is our direct marketing, which is, although operated from the ranch, is an enterprise in itself. We take what the ranch produces and package it and deliver it to the major city of over 250,000 people. That part of our business, actually being a separate entity, cannot be done in 3 hours a day. And I wanted to make that very, very clear. I have spent a great deal of time marketing our products. We spend very, very little amount of time actually managing the ranch. A typical day for us on the ranch part of our business is to get up in the morning, hop on the ATV, drive across the ranch, wherever the cattle are, open the gate, 15 minutes later shut the gate after the cattle and animals have come through, and close the gate, and in many, many days the ranch work is done for the day. That is an oversimplification. For our purposes, I think it actually makes a point. The other side of our business, the Real Farm Foods, the marketing of all these products, is many times a full 8 to 10 hour day for anywhere from 1 to 3 people. That is packaging, moving, selling, marketing,
Thanks, Cody, for clarifying, because it seems like often the marketing is a real struggle for farmers and ranchers, and so for pointing out that we can shoot for getting our chores down to less so that we have more time for the marketing. My next question is, what challenges have you encountered with multi-species grazing?
Well, that's a real easy question to answer. We have found that treating soil conditions, growing forages, putting up fences, installing water, those physical jobs and getting the results that we needed are quite easily done. It's just a matter of going through the process, and it is completed, and improvements are made from year to year on the initial installation of those fences. That's really quite simple. It's simply done. On the other hand, the most difficult, most challenging that all of us in grazing will have is correcting the genetic failures that we've bred into our livestock over the last 60 or 70 years. And to simplify that, what I'm saying is most of our cow herds across the country for the last 60 or 70 years or more have been bred to perform on grain. These animals that are turned out on a grazing environment, for the most part, will not do the job that we need them to do. They do not have the propensity to put weight on forages only. And this is due almost 100% to the breeding that we've accomplished over those many, many years. So yes, the most challenging part will be improving the cow herd genetically to do what we need it to do and what we must do to perform at a high level on forages alone. And that is a challenge that will take many, many years. We use the idea that we need 3 generations. If we've got a cow herd that's running out here that is a typical cow herd, that we need 3 generations of breeding that is with the right grass genetically powered bull, and that is about 10-year period. So what we're saying, it will take, on an average, about 10 years of rebreeding a cow herd to approach a point to where the cow herd can actually approach sustainability levels on forage alone. That's a very, very, very big challenge. The biggest challenge that I believe any of us will have.
The next question is, how do you fence for multi-species grazing? And I think you kind of touched on that, but I think it'd be great to have some more details.
Okay, I can. Fencing is not a complex issue. It does require some information on where and an insight on the goals of a particular ranch. We do have many different species on the ranch, which we feel is absolutely a necessity for sustainability. And having the different species requires different types of fencing. If you might recall in some of my photographs and in my book, I make it very, very clear. The ranch is 1,000 acres, and that 1,000 acres is divided into those 5 different grazing cells that on my slide, I labeled those by color, the red, green, blue, black, and pink. Each one of those grazing cells is what we call sheep type, pig type. It's got enough wire, type of wire, to hold smaller species. You're talking 5 different grazing cells, only separated by the type of wire, meaning probably in most cases a 3-wire electric fence, which will hold in the hogs and the sheep and the small species. within that, and that circles that grazing cell of about 200 acres. Within that 200-acre grazing cell, it is divided up into single wire electric fence paddocks of approximately 7 acres apiece. There will be 20 to 40 paddocks of those inside that grazing cell. And those individual paddocks of about 7 acres, designated by the single wire, is what we move the cows through. We go into a grazing cell of about 200 acres with all the species. The cattle are confined to the individual grazing paddocks of about 7 acres, and the other animals, which is primarily the sheep, will walk under the single wire that are restricted to that grazing cell by the type of fencing that encloses that grazing cell. Approximately 30 days later, that set of livestock is moved to another grazing cell, and that is repeated over and over again.
All right, Wilsons, go ahead and click on that mic, and you can take over the question asking if you would like. Oh. Or I can just ask it. How do you keep fences hot when using long rest periods? Doesn't the forage ground out the fence?
Okay, I can answer that. We're trying to get the mic on. We're not seeing the icon for the mic right now.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was talking to the Wilsons. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's
okay.
Okay.
That makes sense, and I can answer that just fine. The growth on the fence is definitely an issue, and the construction of the fence, the grounding rods, the type of fence energizer, all plays a very, very important part of that, preventing those issues. There is next to no rounding out issues on the top wire, which makes up, probably 90% of our fencing. A single strand, high tensile at approximately 36 inches tall. It's hot enough that any growth that touches that for a short amount of time will virtually be burnt off. The wire that is down at the bottom, where the hogs in, which is about 10 inches tall, can become overgrown in pasture in some of the paddocks at certain times if the paddock is not grazed very, very heavily. And we correct most of our problems, whether it's rounding out from electrical fencing or poor fertility. Most of our problems are solved by changing our grazing management. So to answer the question, how do we keep the overgrowth from grounding out electrical fence? Heavier grazing.
If you believe it. Oh, I guess the mic's back on. Go ahead, Torray.
Say, Luke. Okay, our mic's back on. I just unplugged it and plugged it back in. It worked again. So, oh, Erin, you can finish your question.
Can I ask the next one?
Yeah.
So we have a scenario. It's kind of typical to what we're experiencing. A young farmer coming back to the family farm wants to start grazing operation on high-value land that has been crop farmed for many years. What would be your advice? And maybe that dovetails on what you said, what you recommended, leasing versus owning land. But would you have any other advice?
Well, there's probably a lot of discussion on that. That's a very common question to ask. And so much of our agricultural land now is priced way above what it can produce. I think that we have some advantages, though, because, in particular, the younger folks have the ability sometimes and the energy to look at direct marketing, where some of the older, more established farmers are not interested in looking at those opportunities, and that's strictly the marketing end of the business, or the second business, as I sometimes refer to it. converting traditional grain land into grazing paddocks is something that some people have a hard time understanding is how we do it, and we've converted corn ground into pasture ground without planting anything. We simply put up fences and start eating a little bit of hay on the ground and move the cattle around. Pretty soon we've got grass. And I think that before you and Erin made a comment, you had a slide where you had rested a piece of property. It was triangle shaped, and you had planted seed on both sides of it, and you had planted no seed in the center where it was triangular shaped. And I think it was Erin that made a question, asked the question, why did we seed that? And I think that makes a really good point that we can get forages to grow successfully with nothing other than herd impact and rest. And your comment, why did we seed that, leads me into another part of what I wish we had a lot of time to discuss. We operate on our ranch on not a low input system, but a no input system. And with your comment about why did we seed that, that makes a very good point. We can accomplish this with no inputs. We just have to have the understanding and the knowledge of how to use the hoof of the animal and when to use it and how long to use it and the intricacies of rest. And we can better move from a grain environment to a pasture environment, spending actually very, very little amount of money.
And I'll move it.
All right. Thank you, Cody. So we just have last few questions, and then we can open it up. But this will hopefully this one doesn't take too long. Pasture mode of transportation. I think you already said an ATV, but which do you prefer?
We heard you're quite the horseman.
Yeah, and we raised a lot of colts for a lot of years, and we were in the horse business for a lot of years, and I used to rodeo some, so we are very close to the horses. And we used horses in ranching for 30 years or more. And we still have a few horses, but they hardly ever get saddled anymore. There's really the inconvenience of a horse in this type of grazing environment is he's not conducive to this. I can buy an ATV and pay for it in 1 year and save all the feed on the horse and all the expense that goes with it and be more efficient. That was something and if you knew me better, you'd know that was a hard thing for me to give up. We've given up the horses completely on the ranch and replaced 3 cowboys, 3 horses, and 3 or 4 good dogs with 1 ATV, and my 15-year-old daughter can manage the entire ranch for a week or 2 while we're gone by herself. So a change of management, a change of ideas, a change of thought process make a lot of difference on taking a ranch that was managed traditionally in a very, very high input type world that we live in today, very low input, operating with very low inputs, which is absolutely a requirement for sustainability. So if we weren't as large an operation as we are, for instance, if we were maybe just 80 acres or 160 acres, I probably would choose the form of just walking from pasture to pasture. It certainly would. It's about 3 miles from one end of our ranch to the other. And, at my age, I'm going to want to ride something, and that is an ATV.
All right, thank you, Cody. And then, so you guys don't have any type of herding dogs to work the sheep at all or anything like that?
We used to have a lot of, we used dogs a lot in the past. And our animals will follow us up a tree if we ask them to. They get moved every day, and moving there's almost always at least 1,000 animals in our mob, and moving that 1,000 animals from point A to point B is a one-person job, and it isn't a difficult thing to do. The only difficulty is just to open the gate and get out of the way in a hurry because they're going to come through. So herding dogs are unnecessary. We do run guard dogs with our sheep to guard off predators, which are primarily coyotes and mountain lions in our part of the country.
All right, so maybe this next question, I think you may have touched on it, but so let's skip to the next. What infrastructure do you prefer to have on a grazing system? Or you could answer the previous one too, if you have the slides in front of you. But just speak about infrastructure, if you could.
The less infrastructure, the better. A box, a step-in post, and a potted wire and a reel. That's all you absolutely have to have. Anything else would qualify under the 3 R's. If it will rust, rot, or it can't reproduce. So that's all you need. As far as infrastructure, that's all you need. The methodology and the training and the understanding of holistic systems, and which would lead into the understanding of grazing. Putting in a grazing plan, understanding the methodology, and creating your own fertility, which will all be classified under knowledge. The knowledge part of this grazing scenario that we're talking about is much, much, much more important and necessary than any type of infrastructure.
Even a corral, do you need one or use one for loading cattle in and out?
No more, no less than any other cattle operation. Any livestock operation is going to have some very basic cattle handling facilities. They need to be very basic. Our ranch, we operate completely under a biological system. We no longer vaccinate. No longer worm or de-life. Cattle go through a chute once a year when we prick check. Young calves, for the most part, never go through a chute. Infrastructure needs to be extremely minimized, and the extent of the corral system for livestock that needed would be related very closely to the size of the operation that you have. The smaller that you have, the less should be invested in it. And keep in mind the 3 R's again. If it will rust or rot or can't reproduce, you need to step back, take a look at it, consider whether it's absolutely necessary.
Cody, when we were on your website, we saw that you have an on-farm store. Do you have any advice on how to put one on or the challenges with an on-farm store? And would you do it again?
Okay. The on-farm store is another one of those issues that probably needs a lot of time to discuss. We first started looking at direct marketing. We're talking about 10 years ago. We wanted recognition. We also wanted to sell meat. We thought the best way to do that would be to open up a store on the farm with freezers in it, walk-in freezers, put up a sign, and say meat for sale. Since then, over a 10-year period, we've learned that marketing is a lot more involved than that. We are about an hour's drive from a major city, 3 miles down a gravel road. A person, for the most part, people that are willing to pay for quality meats or produce, for the most part, we have found in our area are not willing to drive for an hour and then three miles down a gravel road for a T-bone steak. So if we had it to do all over again, would we still open the farm store? Yes, we would. Our reality would be that it would not be so much as for what we would sell through that retail store, but as a promotional tool and to accommodate the people that come to our ranch during the year to learn what we're doing about and how we're raising food, and to see what products that we offer. And then when they go back home, they have a memory of what they saw when they were here, and then they're picking up the telephone or they're emailing their order off of our website, and we're shipping the meat to them. But the farm store, in our case, because we're so far away, will not be a revenue generator in the terms of what is sold out of that building. Still, yet I think it's quite important in the overall marketing plan of selling meat and product and produce from the farm.
Thanks, Cody. Luke, it sounds like we need another webinar about marketing grass-fed products or something like that, and have Cody come back and speak about that. But the last question we have is, well, maybe you don't even have any sick animals, Cody, but the question was, how do you handle sick livestock?
How do I handle sick livestock? Was that the question?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I don't know that it would be any different than any other typical livestock grower. If it's a serious problem that we cannot manage ourselves, we have a list of very good vets that we've worked with for 25 or 30 years, which we work with very closely. Our veterinary expense is just about zero because we have just about no health problems whatsoever. When nutrition is correct on a grazing animal, and that is through grazing, most of us in the livestock industry have battled with antibiotics and with injections. Those issues go away. They no longer exist, and that is a very hard. That's very hard for many of the traditional people to comprehend when they're spending anywhere from $20 to $80 a year on animal care, and we're spending just about nothing on animal care as far as medicines and antibiotics and so on and so forth. And I don't know. This is an added benefit that I didn't expect. We have no calving problems, and that is due to our genetics. We haven't seen a calf born in years. Our sheep lamb on their own. Pigs give us surprises when they're digging in the woods. It's much easier to raise animals when you do not have health problems than it is when you're trying to correct all your poor management through the end of a syringe.
Wow, that's a really fascinating response. And I wanted to ask, would it be all right if we stayed on for another 5 or 10 minutes so we could get some questions from the audience?
I've got plenty of time.
Great. How about for you, Torray and Erin?
We've got plenty of time.
The first question I thought we should start with was from Ryan Marquardt. He asked, in what way see if I can go back up far enough. Here. What do the Wilsons do for fencing, and is it different than what you heard from Cody?
Yeah, we do. Since we are a smaller operation, we do try to limit the movement of the sheep more. So our pastures are all set up with 3 strands of high tensile in strips, and then we subdivide those strips with netting to create our paddocks. So with electronetting. Did that come over?
Yes. Yep. Okay, so Ryan's question got answered. Great.
Okay, good.
Yeah, next question. Let's go to
Next question.
let's go up to Ray Burris. Asked a question about how many acre paddocks for mob grazing, how many cattle, and at what height is it grazed down to? Do you want to take that one, Cody?
I can, and again, when we start talking about managing of these forages and asking a question that seems like a very simple question, like how low do you graze forage down? That may seem like a very simple question, and some producers may give you a simple answer back that I'll tell you will not be the correct answer. That is, if we're trying to maximize production on the farm. We cannot set up a grazing program that can be written out longhand and handed over to a person to operate for the rest of the year or even an extended period of time. Adjustments and decisions are made daily. If we are trying to maximize production and utilization of the forage, right now here we are, March 22nd. We are on full grass here in South Missouri, but our grass is, for the most part, our new growth is 3 to 4 inches tall, which is very, very short. We are moving cattle very, very fast because when grass is growing fast, we move cattle fast. When grass is growing slow, we move cattle. We move cattle very slow. And there's a lot more discussion that needs to be made on that topic to answer the question that was asked and to answer it properly. I cannot say how low do I eat the forage down. I can't answer that because at different times of the year we're eating it down at different times. If you would call me back by the 10th day of May, the biggest part of my pastures will be knee high. Some of them will be waist high. When I turn into those paddocks at that particular time, I'll be turning in the 1,000 animals into about 7 acres at a time. They will take that 7 acres in a 24-hour period. They will eat about 30% of that forage in that 7 acres. They will take about 60% of that forage and stomp it into the ground. The other 10% that is left would be uneaten forage. And that's the difference at the 10th of May, the way that I have residuals, compared to what I'm doing today on March 22nd when my forage is only about 4 inches tall.
That's a great answer, and I think it's almost maybe that's another Farminar we could have just on that topic. Question about the hot wire, Cody. Do you run just a single strand of hot wire and that keeps the sheep in? Is that what I understood?
No, that's not correct. The only place that we have single strand electric are the individual 7-acre paddocks that are within the 200-acre grazing cell. Each grazing cell of about 200 acres has either 5 strands of typical barbed wire or 3 strands of electrical, and either one of those will hold in the sheep.
Thank you. That was a question that was about the hot wire. What kind of fencers do you use that you like to use?
If you're asking me, I want the hottest thing on the market. I want a very, very hot fence. It is absolutely critical. We have, I think, something like 40-some miles of fence on one charger, and you do not want to touch our wire. I promise you.
How about you, Torray and Erin?
Well, with the sheep and the tightness that we're running, Yeah, the biggest fencer that they sell on the market right now, I think it's a 36 or 33 joule unit from Stayfax. Stayfax or Speedrite, I think one of
Are
those.
those the same brands you use, Cody?
I know of the Stayflex, and I recommend it to a lot of people. I bought my charger back before the more popular brands were on the market and available in America. I've got an older model that looks like an antique, but it is on the same in the same category as what Torray just mentioned. And when it finally dies, which I don't know that it ever is, when it finally dies, we'll be buying the large Stayfix as well.
Great. Where would you send someone for more information on the portable hen house for the egg layers?
Well, I don't know what kind of information you're wanting. We built all of our hen houses here on the farm out of mostly scrap materials. We're getting ready to change the type of house that we use to more of a hoop house, simply because of the ease of movement and cost of production. There's lots of websites that you can go and visit, and you can visit the Rockin' H Ranch, see what we're doing, see how we build ours. We have field days and customer appreciation days on the ranch seminars and schools throughout the season. You can find those on our website. Happy to show you what we're doing anytime.
Great. Torray and Erin, do you want to answer that question in your own way?
Yeah, well, it's kind of similar to Cody. We've had multiple versions of portable chicken buildings, and we've kind of settled on the A-frame design instead of hoop houses, for the fact that we have a lot of wind, and the A-frame seems to prevent wind from blowing the shed away or breaking it up. So that's pretty much what we use.
Question about mineral or salt supplements. Do you both use those? Is that right?
If you're asking me, we are a no input operation, and when I say no input, I mean no input. We buy nothing. We started this. We went cold turkey, and it is when we first went from a traditional system to a no input system. We were dedicated, and again, our cow herd that we had 10 years ago is not the same cow herd that we have today. The traditional cow herd will not work under this system, not have the propensity to perform on forages or what the ranch will produce. We took all of our animals off of mineral, buy nothing in a bag. We even took the cattle off of salt. About 18 months into the program, we made a decision to add salt back to the livestock nutrition program. Other than forages, a salt trace mineral block, very traditional, is all that the animals have access to besides the forage.
Thank you, Cody. How about you guys, Wilsons?
Well, we'd like to be where Cody's at with very little or like no salt and mineral, but no, we still feed salt, free trace salt, and then the cattle get mineral. The sheep haven't gotten mineral for over a year now, and we're still not sure that, well, so far so good, as for the most part.
Are there any other questions from the audience? We've got about 1 minute, so if anyone's got a burning question, put it in the chat box now. And as you're thinking about it, I just wanted to thank Cody and Torray and Erin for their time tonight. And I think despite the difficulties we had in the middle, I think we got it figured out here with this cell phone situation. And I was just really appreciative of your work preparing your presentations and for sharing your knowledge with us tonight.
Thank you very much, Luke. I enjoyed being on. As you know, I really despise this technical infrastructure that we need to accomplish these, but I think we got through it one way or the other.
Thanks, Luke, for having us on as well. It was good, and yeah, technology can be frustrating, but I'm glad it works for the most part. So.
And thanks so much, Cody, for agreeing to be on with us.
Yeah, thank you, Cody.
Thanks, guys. I enjoyed it, and it was sure nice meeting you. Best of luck with your grazing.
Yeah, what's your website again? We can put that in the chat box.
Mine is www.realfarmfoods.net. realfarmfoods.net.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, all, and join us next week for brokering tips with Wallace Farms and Ryan Marquardt Wild Rose Pastures, 7 p.m. Tuesday night. Thanks so much.